What's going on, guys? It's Greg here. Just wanted to do a quick video on the most dangerous places to be after SHTF. Um, so I'm gonna get started. I'm just gonna list some different places that I thought about that you may not want to be around when there's a disaster or after some type of crap hits the fan situation. This is just a quick list that I came up with, and it's obviously not fully gonna cover everything, but if you guys come up with some ideas, just let me know. So the first thing would be hospitals, pharmacies, and medical centers. So this hospitals, there's going to be a lot of sick people there. Medical centers, same thing. There's going to be they may get overcrowded. There may be angry people there because they're waiting in line to get services and nobody's helping them. I just think that hospitals and medical centers, there's just going to be a lot of people trying to go there to get resources, medical resources for their loved ones. And, there may also be a lot of sick people, especially if there's a pandemic. There's going to be a lot of, people that may be ill. So you want to kind of stay away from those areas if you can. And then another one is pharmacies. Pharmacies, that should kind of be obvious. People are going to try to raid pharmacies for, prescription drugs that they need if they have medical conditions. They're obviously going to be, people are going to try to break in and steal from pharmacies. There may also be looters and drug dealers who see this as an opportunity to obtain free drugs that are normally regulated and controlled. They may try to basically raid pharmacies so they can obtain drugs that they can later sell, or they could build up like a stockpile that they could later sell. So pharmacies, you definitely want to stay away from pharmacies if you can, because there's just going to be a lot of I feel that, in my opinion, there's going to be a lot of people trying to break into them, and the chances of you getting into a gunfight with someone or a physical altercation are very high. Somebody may even try to rob you there. Especially if you have like more criminal elements, congregating at these areas, then you may get robbed or something if you're hanging around a pharmacy or something like that. So that's another area that I think would be very dangerous. Another one would be gas stations. I think that gas stations, that should be common sense. People are going to be trying to fight for gas. We've seen that already with over here locally where I am in New York. There was the Hurricane Sandy, and during Hurricane Sandy there was a lot of, especially around New York City, there was a lot of people fighting for gas, in Long Island and places like that. So gas stations are definitely an area that you want to avoid if you can, and they're going to be very dangerous. People could also try to rob you after you leave the gas station. So let's say like you go and get gas from somewhere and then you leave, there may be some bad people out there that may try to steal the gas that you just filled up on. If you filled up like some containers, they may be waiting for people when they leave the gas station to steal from them. So you want to be very careful how you approach a gas station and how you leave it during SHTF, because in my opinion, I think that the criminals out there, they're going to seize that as like an opportunity to steal from people as they're going to gas stations or as they're leaving, and rob them, whatever. So that's something to think about as well. You want to have good security when you're going to a gas station if you have to. It doesn't even just have to be a gas station. It could be anywhere where there's fuel supplies. So if, let's say, the National Guard sets up like an area where they're dispensing fuel to people. That would be another area to watch out for as well. Any area that's going to have fuel resources, because fuel is going to be critical in SHTF. Everybody's going to need fuel. You need fuel for your car, you need fuel for heating. Fuel is critical. Petroleum-based fuel, it runs our whole country. So, any area that has fuel, but specifically gas stations, the next one will be highways. Highways are going to get clogged, and they're going to be full of panicking people. So basically, like, this is common sense. We've seen it before. Let's say, I think most recently it was one of the hurricanes. I think it was like 2 years ago, or maybe like a year and a half ago. It was I think it was Hurricane Matthew. I think, yeah, that was like, or maybe it was 2 years ago. I can't remember. That was the hurricane that hit Georgia and the Carolinas. It like went along the east coast of Florida, and it kind of like hooked around and hit that area. I remember they were showing pictures of like people trying to evacuate, and the whole highway was just backed up because everybody was funneled onto like one or two highways. The police, they shut down like all the other highways, and they were forcing people to go on like a specific highway. I don't remember which one it was. I think they also shut down like the southbound traffic, so this way both sides of the highway could be used for evacuation. But you don't want to be in a situation like that, obviously, because you never know who you're on that highway with. If let's say let's say the highway's clogged and traffic is so backed up, people are going to start panicking because they need to get to loved ones, or they need to escape. If it's like a pending disaster or something, people are going to start going crazy because they're stuck in traffic. So they may get out of their vehicles, they may try to go on foot, and there's going to just be a lot of panicking people that are not prepared, and they don't have the right mindset for survival, and they're not going to really know what to do, and they may try to, steal supplies from you. They may try to harm you. If there's, bad people like criminals, they may also try to take advantage of the situation. So highways, are going to be a dangerous place. Another one is grocery stores. That's, pretty obvious. People are going to be panicking, and they're going to try to buy groceries at the last minute, or they may try to, if it's SHTF, like a day or two after, and things are just really bad, people are going to try to steal, they're going to try to loot. So grocery stores are going to be a bad area to be in. That should be common sense. Another one would be any type of government shelters set up by, the federal government or the National Guard. Obviously, if you have no other choice, then you have to go to the shelter. But, the shelters are going to be, it's a confined space. You're going to, let's say, they're going to put people in a certain area, like a football stadium or something, kind of like in Hurricane Katrina. And you have to understand, when you have large groups of people in small areas, there's going to be things like, fleas, lice, different types of parasites, different types of diseases, germs. It's all going to be like a breeding ground for germs and disease, especially, like body lice, lice, things like that. Any type of disease that's spread by fleas, or lice, like a plague type, like a plague type virus or something that, is spread through fleas or lice. That's going to be something to think about. So you really don't want to stay in a government shelter for long periods of time, because you're going to be, with strangers, and you don't know who these people are. They may come in with the best intentions. They may be good people. But eventually, being in a confined space for so long, germs and bugs and disease are going to spread. It happens. It's unfortunate. But another area would be any type of government food or supply dispensaries. So if it's like a really bad SHTF situation, the government may set up like areas for, and this could be local government, it could be federal government, it could be the National Guard, it could be state government. They're going to set up areas where you can get certain critical supplies like food or, bottled water. Sometimes they'll hand out like dry ice to keep your food cold. These areas, especially down the road after SHTF happens after a while, they may be, dangerous places to be, because you're going to have people congregating and trying to get these resources, and people may get violent. And, you never know, you may get ambushed after you leave one of these places. There may be criminals hanging around and looking to like steal from you. Another one is banks and financial institutions. People are going to try to panic and pull out their money. Criminals are going to try to rob banks, obviously, because the power is going to be out. Shopping centers, there's going to be a lot of looters, and just, people that are just trying to take advantage of the situation that the power is out, or, there's no rule of law. Law enforcement is overwhelmed. They can't patrol everything, so there's going to be a lot of people in these shopping centers trying to steal stuff. So you want to stay away from shopping centers as well. High crime areas, this will obviously be a bad place to be, because, as it is now during rule of law, these areas have a lot of crime. So, once rule of law is diminished and, law enforcement is overwhelmed, these areas will be, very dangerous. And a lot of the criminals are going to feel uninhibited. They're going to feel like, empowered, because there's nothing to stop them. So, they're going to go out and do bad stuff. Urban areas, especially downtown areas that are heavily populated, any type of like center type area in the center of a city is going to be dangerous for a lot of reasons. I think because, number one, you're going to have a lot of panicking people, and you're going to have to deal with people that are, panicking. They may try to, steal from you. They may try to take stuff from you. If they see that, if they're thirsty and you have water and you're drinking a water bottle, they may try to steal it from you. You may get into fights with people. So that's another thing. And then also, depending on the type of situation it is, some of these urban areas there could be danger of collapsing buildings, fires, dangerous soot. Just like, for example, 9/11 is a good example. A lot of the buildings collapsed around the Twin Towers. There was very dangerous soot that covered the whole Manhattan area, lower Manhattan. And that soot had a lot of, asbestos, carcinogens, everything. And then, so, being in a downtown area, you could, depending on what type of SHTF situation it is, you could have a building come down on you. There could be also, building fires, if it's like an EMP or some type of electrical thing. There may be electrical faults and electrical problems that will cause buildings to catch on fire. If there's like a power surge, let's say from an EMP, for example, there's going to be a power surge and it's going to cause electrical fires, because what's going to happen is the electricity is going to surge through the wires, and it's just the wires are not going to be able to, the insulation around the wires are going to melt, and it's just going to cause whatever's around it to catch on fire. So, if it's like an urban area with a lot of buildings, there's a lot of electricity in those buildings. You got to think about, let's say like a 50-story office building, how much electricity is running through that building, on a constant basis, how many outlets there are, how many light bulbs there are, how many, refrigerators there are, all kinds of appliances that are drawing a lot of electricity. All these electrical systems and all these appliances, all the wiring, it's just a high likelihood, depending on what kind of SHTF it is, that this electrical stuff can, catch fire, because it'll overheat. So I'm not going to really get into too much details. This is an electrical engineering class, but I think hopefully you understand what I'm trying to say. So any kind of area with big buildings is going to be dangerous, you know, uh, because of collapse possibility, and then fires, and then also soot. If we're talking about like a bomb, some type of a bomb terrorist attack, where the buildings are burning. When buildings burn, there's a lot of you know dangerous things that are in the building that when it catches fire, it releases into the air. That normally, like, you have all these different building materials that they use in commercial office buildings that normally they're not dangerous, but when they're heated up and they burn, they release a lot of chemicals into the air. So, and a lot of different things, like particulates, different types of particulates, so you don't want to really be breathing that in. So if you're in a downtown area, let's say you're at work and you work in like a major metro area, in like a heavily like office type area with big buildings, if something happens, you're going to want to get out of there as quickly as possible, and you're going to want to avoid people as much as possible. You're going to want to stick to areas where there are less traveled. You don't want to just jump right on a train or right on a bus or take a taxi, because everybody's going to try to do that. And the best thing is if you can, if you have a map and you can walk your way out and try to avoid those high trafficked areas, you'll be your best bet. And then also there could be a rapid spreading of disease too. So if we're talking about like could be even a biological agent that was dispersed into a city, or some type of pandemic situation, any type of densely populated urban area, especially like a downtown type area where you have lots of people in a small area. Obviously the disease is going to spread quickly. So that's another hazard as well. Another thing too is that urban areas, especially downtown areas, are generally targets for nuclear attack, chemical attack, biological attack, terrorist attack. These types of areas are a high priority target for enemies of the United States. That's common sense. So the longer you stay in that type of an area, the more likely you are that you could get hit with let's say there's a secondary attack or some type of follow-up attack. So you kind of want to get away from that. Just think about 9/11, like you had the two planes hit. After the first plane hit, it's kind of a sore subject, but if I was there and I saw the first plane hit, I'm not going to stand around and take pictures with my phone. I'm not going to wait around and just like stare at it and see like, oh wow, look at this. I'm going to try to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible, because I know if there's one plane that hit, chances are there's probably more out there. I wouldn't just stand around and watch it and kind of look at it like it's some type of like entertainment or something. If something goes down, you want to get out of there as quickly as possible. So urban areas. Another area would be outlying areas that are away from people and like law enforcement or any type of security forces. So this should be obvious. There may be risk of being attacked by groups of gangs and marauders. That's like the prepper term for them. But basically, if you don't know what that means, that's basically bad people are gonna band together, just like good people are gonna band together to help each other, right? Like neighbors are gonna help each other out. Many times, like when the power is out over here where I am, people help each other. They check on each other, they speak to their neighbors, they ask their neighbor if they need any help or whatever. So just like good people do that, bad people are gonna do the same thing, and criminals are gonna do the same thing. They're gonna band together, and they're going to try to do different things. Whatever they try to do, it's you don't know, but generally speaking, if you're in an area that's far away from population and far away from security forces, and when I say security forces, I mean, it could be police patrols, it could be National Guard patrols, it could be state police patrols, it could be, your local community may have you guys may band together and have your own like security patrols with your neighbors just patrolling your properties. You want to stay close to those areas because that's where you're going to be most safe. You don't want to really venture out, into like far away places where you could be, ambushed by a superior force that has, large amounts of people with, guns possibly. You're going to be outnumbered, so you don't really want to just be like traveling and kind of like, venturing far away from, security areas where that areas that are secured. Another one is nuclear power plants. If the grid goes down, it's possible that a lot of the nuclear power plants may be affected in some way. And now, obviously, nuclear power plants, they're designed to, when they build the nuclear power plant, they design that into the system so they can account for a power outage. It's not like they just have this nuclear plant that has no way of tolerating any type of faults. They always have some type of redundancies and fault tolerances, so if the power goes out, there's a way for them to continue to, keep the core under control and keep the reactor under control. The core, they have to maintain it to keep it cool, because that's when it gets bad, is when the reactor overheats, the nuclear core overheats, and then it, detonates or it melts down into the ground and stuff like that. So when the power goes out, there's a possibility that, a lot of nuclear power plants may lose their capability of keeping the reactor core cool, or not even just the reactor core, but also the waste. A lot of nuclear power plants store waste on site, and the nuclear waste has to be constantly kept cool because it runs at a constant extreme temperature because it's a very radioactive substance. And even though it's not in the core anymore and they used it up, it's already spent, it still has to be kept cool constantly for thousands of years, until it expires, which is a very long time. So either the core can be compromised, or like some type of waste fuel storage could be compromised. So you definitely want to you don't want to be near a nuclear plant after SHTF hits, especially if it's like a short-term SHTF. I wouldn't really worry too much, but if it's prolonged, the longer time goes on, the more chances there are that something could go wrong, because electricity is critical for any type of industry, especially a nuclear power plant. There's just so many things that have to be meticulously controlled in a nuclear power plant for everything to go right and prevent any kind of problems, and I'm not a nuclear engineer, but I have friends of mine that, are nuclear engineers. I have people that I know that are engineers at nuclear power plants. And so I've had them tell me about it and explain how everything works, so I'm not giving you bad information. And then any type of like industrial area could also be bad for the same reason as the nuclear plant, because there could be electrical fires, number one. And that's another thing with the nuclear plants too. There could be electrical fires, if there's a power surge for some reason. But same thing if there's an industrial area, you may have to worry about electrical fires caused by different short circuits or some type of a fault, which could spiral into explosions and or any type. If there's a fire or explosion, it's going to release toxic gases and fumes. So you definitely don't want to be near like a very active industrial area, like a chemical plant, or some type of area that manufactures chemicals or petroleum, things like that, things that are combustible and toxic and that are actively being, manufactured. You want to stay away from those areas. Another thing too would be downstream of a major dam. Obviously the dam could become compromised because of lack of power. Now, dams obviously have built-in redundancies in case the power goes out. They have generators and stuff like that. But as we've seen in the past, many of the dams in our country are very old. And we've seen in California, there was forgot the name of that dam, but we've seen how dams that we think are in good shape are really not, and they have issues with them. And a lot of these issues get covered up, or they're just not addressed because there's no funding. And once the power goes out and crap hits the fan, these issues that are normally monitored on a daily basis, they're not being monitored and they're not being mitigated, and controlled. And that's where we can have issues. Like, for example, they may lose control of spillways, of gates, and different types of flow control systems that control the flow of the water, in and out of the reservoir. The water could overflow and then it could cause the dam to burst. And, all these things are reliant on electrical power to be able to open spillway gates and let the water out, or close them, or to turn turbines on. If it's a dam, they usually have a hydroelectric power plant there, and they may be able to turn the turbines on to generate power. All these things are reliant on electricity, and if you take that away, it's not that you're not going to be able to control it anymore, but there's just a greater chance that something could go wrong. So you definitely don't want to hang around a major dam or be downstream of a major dam, after SHTF, especially prolonged SHTF, like a long-term situation, So that's just my list that I made up here. I'll just go over it again real quick. It's hospitals, pharmacies, medical centers, gas stations, highways, food stores, government shelters, government food and supply dispensaries, banks and financial institutions, shopping centers, high crime areas, downtown urban areas, especially where there's high-rise buildings, and any type of area that could be considered economically important, or like, if you're near, let's say, the New York Stock Exchange, that's a big target for terrorists or foreign governments. They're going to try to bomb it. Any type of outlying area away from people and any type of security forces. Near nuclear power plants, you don't want to be near a nuclear power plant, especially a long-term SHTF. You want to try to get away from it if you can. Heavy industrial areas that have active manufacturing or chemical plants, and downstream of a major dam. So that's basically my list, guys. I hope you got something out of this. I hope it made you think a little bit. I'm not trying to scare people or anything. I was just, doing this for fun. And, it's good to think about these things, especially in the world we live in today. So I'd like to hear what you guys think about my list, and if you guys have any other areas that you would avoid after SHTF. And if you could also list, whether it's short-term or long-term SHTF, if the area is dangerous for a short-term situation, or if it's only dangerous after a long-term situation, like after, several weeks. Because obviously areas like shopping centers, banks, things like that, those areas will be dangerous even after a few days, especially if it's like a bad area, a high crime area. Shopping centers, banks, grocery stores, highways, gas stations, things like that. Those are going to be dangerous right away, high crime areas. But other things like, nuclear power plants, major dams, industrial areas, those may be more dangerous after a couple of weeks, or, after a week or two. Then you may have to start thinking about, stuff like that. So let me know what you guys think in the comments Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good night. Take care. God bless. I'll see you on the next one.